Ladies and gentlemen, it's happened. Hell has frozen over. The clocks have stopped. Cats lie with dogs. Everything is upside down and backwards. Glenn Fricker, who is known for being anti-samples and says do everything naturally, has not only embraced the idea of samples, but has made his own drum sample library. This is an Extinction Level Event. Okay, so the pack is called Extinction Level Event, and I used it to make an entire album last week, and it sounds fantastic. And I'm going to show you how I did what I did, because I kept it relatively simple. There's very little external processing on what I did. I'm going to make a preset out of what I did as well, so you can use it in your own mixes if you buy ELE. There's an affiliate link in the description below, and let's check out how it sounds. So this is the album that I've just done the production on. This is Scar is Dead by Joel Boone. And we used Extinction Level Event, which is this. This is the Kontakt library for Extinction Level Event. It comes with Kontakt Player if you don't already own the full Kontakt, so it works perfectly fine without the paid extra Kontakt thing. I happen to have the full version of Kontakt, so it works exactly the same for me as it would for you, except it's got this list of stuff on the left. But there is a load of outputs that you can use. Like I'll say later, Glenn does have a video on his channel about how to do extra routing, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't do very much of that. Let's hear a little bit of it. And now let's hear it soloed. So there's a lot going on here. The kick sounds huge. There's a choice of 3. They're the same kick drum, but I believe the secondary microphone is different. So if I look at the shells here, we've got a Shure 91A, in this case the Sennheiser E902, and then 2 different mics, a kick out and a kick sub, which they don't change, but you can change it for a D112 instead of the 902. More of that clicky clicky, or SM7B for a slightly different tone again. I just happened to find that the one with the 902 fit this mix the best. And there are 4 snares. This one's the highest one, the free-floating phosphor bronze, that's 14 by 6.5. And that sounds like this. But you can change that to Sonor Protean. Or the low tune version of the bronze. Or the Ludwig Superphonic, which is always a classic. And I did think that for this particular song, those were too kind of low tuned and beefy for this particular genre. So that little bit of ring and that crack there was really awesome. And then there are different toms as well with different mics. So those are the clear heads with the 421s. I can change those to D6s. Just a slightly different tone there. Much more of a note on the D6. I think my favourite was the first one, was the clear with the 421 for this particular genre as well. The D6 on the floor tom's beefy. There's a bit more click and a bit less low end on the 421s. But again, for this genre, that worked fine. I didn't need tons of fundamental note in there. And there's 2 sets of hi-hats. There's the one set of hi-hats, is the Zildjian K. They sound great. And then not a huge number of cymbal choices, but honestly, it's fine. I made sure there was a splash instead of a stack. Smaller china instead of the big one because it's ska, it's not like death metal. As awesome as that 19-inch china sounds, it's not right for this. And then the stack there. There is a set of X hats over there that you can use, but I prefer the stack because every now and again on this there is a bit of a cheeky cha-cha-cha-cha kind of thing going on. Let's find a different part of the song where there's a lot more cymbals being hit. You can see there's a lot of movement on the hi-hat there. What I've done there is I've used the MIDI map and kind of made my own that kind of came off the V-Drum TD27 preset, and using the Slate Drums SSD5 as what the guy who made the song programmed it in. I'm actually going to save that and export it as SSD5. I'll link that down below if that's something that you happen to need. But yeah, there are so many different variations of the hi-hats, and almost all of them are mapped here, and they're almost all used across this album. The ride is nice and pingy. Let's see if we can find a section with that. Yeah, so it's quite a strident sounding ride that sounds like a lot, but then you go to the mix. And there's lots going on. And so you'll see that my levels are all over the place on the shells, which are separate from the cymbals, 2 pages. But yeah, I decided to use less of that 902 kick. More of the kick out and the sub mics on this particular album setup. Because where the 91's really good for metal and the 902 kind of rounds it out again for aggressive metal, the kick out and the sub don't sound great on their own because they never do. But they give it a lot of roundness. Because if we combine these, which is quite kind of slappy metal, with the others, we get some of that click that cuts through, but we also get plenty of low end that really sits it underneath everything without being overly metal. And so it's really nice to know that with these 4 microphones I can blend them in such a way that we don't get crazy clickety clickety click 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 clickety click click click. Which might be what you want in some genres. If you want the typewriter thing, get the 91A and just crank it and go wild. It'll sound like a typewriter all day long. But blending that in, really useful. And the snare, there's separate top and separate bottom. Which again, for this genre, it sounds like I'm using too much snare bottom until you pull the rest of the mix in, and then suddenly it kind of dissolves into the mix, but just gives it a bit of a definition. There is also a mic front of kit. Which a lot of the overheads and rooms, which I'll get to in a second, are very wide panned by default, and it just helps to give a more solid center. And then there is a reverb, which I've turned down quite a lot because as good as it is, it's just too much, again, for this genre. So yeah, if I had a much slower genre with beefier snares, I could turn the reverb up that mostly affects the snare, and that would sound amazing. And then we get to the cymbals. So I'm going to start with the 2 pairs of overheads. There's the M60s, which I've kind of pulled in the stereo field a little bit there because they were super wide. And then there's AKG 414s, which I've used in mono. Because that now, they now bring kind of more of the center in. Which means that they don't have to be quite as loud, and then the guitars can be hard pan to the sides, and the overheads are kind of present. Not in the middle necessarily, because there is still this pan on the M60s, but there's a lot more room further out for the guitars. And then there are 3 sets of rooms, rear, front and hall. And there's also rear, front and far. And then there's the hall. If you're going for that big kind of slow song periphery style shotgun in a bathroom, that's amazing for that. But it was too much for this fast pace. So what I decided to do afterwards is the only external processing I did on the whole kit is I got all the close mics on the cymbals, overheads, rooms, everything that wasn't the shells, and I bussed them out to a separate stereo out. So I've got 2 channels. I've got shells and I've got cymbals. And I decided that I would have the cymbals compressed quite hard with the Devil Lock. And then in the virtual mix rack, I've got a little bit of 6-7K being dipped out and a little bit of 600 Hertz. And then that's a volume push, so that's not really anything. And then Soothe is just affecting the top end just because it's a super busy mix. I'm treating this almost like I would with actual cymbals that... You can see that's barely doing anything, but if we get a big obnoxious crash or a big washy set of hits, then it just really controls that down, which is exactly what I need. So I'm not automating every 10 seconds. And so that's it. Bit of extra compression, couple of EQ notches and a bit of Soothe on the tops. Nothing on the shells. Now, something that is interesting to finish this off is if we look at the shells mix again, there's a choice of G comp and 76 comp on the master. So they're completely different compression styles that you don't even need. You can have neither. I just really enjoy the way the G comp brings everything a bit fatter, and then the big change is this button that says processed. If I untick that, I'll get the raw drum sounds. Which sounds completely wrong because then all my faders are out of balance, everything needs EQing, compressing, all that kind of stuff. But the option for me to do that, if I really want to get technical, is great. But the fact that these sound pretty much done as they are, that's it. So the entire instrument bus then goes through a Shadow Hills Class A. So that's all of this. So pretty much everything apart from the vocals and a couple of special effects and some reverb all goes through that. Everything then goes through Black Box Analog Design and just through my general master chain. So I've got a little bit of EQ on the Better Maker, including quite a big high frequency boost there, which affects everything, but then there's a bit of a cut as well, so don't think too hard into that. That's just a high frequency shape for the whole mix. Then I've got Flatline pushing a few dB of level on everything, and that's it, because Adapters Metric AB doesn't change the sound, and that is everything that I'm using on this whole album, and it sounds like this. And the drums sound like they fit really, really well, and I had to do absolutely minimal stuff. I will also get my preset from here I'll save this as a new thing, so I'm not sending out a second track of cymbals, and I'll save that as a contact preset. And also I'll do this 2 separate thing as a Reaper track template, so they'll all be available down in the description depending on what you want. They won't work without Extinction Level Event, so you'll have to go and get that, and there is an affiliate link down below. Now, back to me. So there you go, I hope you enjoyed that, had a lot of fun with it. I'm going to be using it a lot. Probably more often with the lower tune snares and more of the kind of the big room thing, but for this particular project, that high snare and that slightly less of a cannon going off thing was appropriate because it's really fast ska type stuff. But yeah, the fact that I can do both is really impressive, and that it doesn't just sound like a kind of boxy mess or an over-processed thing. And the fact that you can multi-out it. There is a video on Glenn's channel about advanced multi-output, so you can mix it how you like, which I have to say, I would have liked to have seen kind of a standalone version, like something like Superior Drummer with separate outputs, but I know that's a lot more work to make an engine like that, and that, who knows, we might see that in the future. But the sounds that are here for the price that it is, which is significantly less than something like Superior, it really gives some of the big boys a run for their money, and I think we're going to see a lot of this on people's productions in the future. So like I said earlier, there is an affiliate link in the description below. I'm about to go to Germany to 42 Gear Street and then go on tour with Glenn himself. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll see if I can do an FAQ with Glenn about the drums whilst we're on the road. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.